welcome to the series to celebrate LGBT plus History Month in the US. To celebrate LGBT plus History Month, I will actually be doing a series dedicated to those who are part of the community in the tech industry. And our first guest is the lovely Katie Gleason, who is a web designer, if I'm correct, over at WP Engine. So thank you very much for coming and joining this series. Feel free to take a couple of minutes to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So, as you said, my name's Katie. I'm a web designer at WP Engine. I've been in the tech industry for about 6 months, so I'm, still very fresh. Yeah, I focus a lot of my designs on outward-facing websites for WP Engine with a focus on accessibility specifically.
Lovely, lovely. So obviously we've got a list of questions that we'll run through just to find out a bit more about you and celebrate your successes so far. I appreciate you're quite new to the industry, but I know you've had an exciting road to get there. So yeah, I'll jump in with the first question then. So how did you get into the tech industry?
Going back to graduating from college, I got a degree in psychology, and the original plan was to continue my education and go become a therapist because I always had this interest in helping improve people's lives. After graduation, I slowly began to realize that the passion wasn't there and the motivation to go back to school for another 2 to 5 years, depending, wasn't there. So I kind of began looking around for other ways that I could take my passions and my skills and apply them in ways that would have, similar outcomes where it would improve the lives of people. A friend of mine actually introduced me to the world of user experience design. And she was like, this sounds like it would be right up your alley. You should check it out. And, from the first Google search I did, I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. Like it's such a cool field and it fits perfectly with what I'm looking for. That was the easy part, deciding I wanted to do it. And the difficult part was actually doing it. I spent 18 months reading textbooks, taking short online courses, and the friend who had introduced me was so amazing to act as a really early mentor for me. And whenever I would create these designs, she would ask me to send them to her and would provide really detailed feedback that was aimed at improving my design mind instead of just improving the designs that were on the page. So I wouldn't be anywhere without her. But so after about 18 months of that and, taking on some volunteer projects, applying for, 70 plus jobs, I finally found a company that was as excited about me as I was about them, and that was WP Engine. So I've been here for about 6 months now, and I'm absolutely loving it.
Good, that's great to hear. I've actually heard very good things about WP Engine in terms of diversity and inclusion. So it's great to hear that you're enjoying it there, even though you're quite new. But no, that's amazing. So I know you just touched on it a little bit there, but how did you find the process of entering the tech world? I know you mentioned it was sort of a long self-taught process, but if you could just run through a bit of the details around how you found it.
I had a much easier time with networking and connecting with other people. But what I found was that if you're not already in the tech industry, if you don't already have people willing to vouch for you, it's really difficult to break in from the outside, especially in UX design. You don't see a whole lot of entry-level positions, and there are a whole lot of entry-level candidates. The odds aren't really in your favor. What I found was most helpful was I started joining different Facebook groups actually for tech jobs in Austin, tech remote jobs, where people in these companies would post about job openings either on their teams or on teams they worked with. And so that was a way to kind of jump at these job applications before other people got to see them. And so that's how I found the position for WP Engine. One of the senior designers on the team that I'm on posted the application, and I reached out to him. I emailed him, and he said he thought I'd be a good fit. So I submitted my application, and it ended up working out. So
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, I mean, there's obviously quite a lot of groups now. So, for example, we're part of Women Who Code and Austin Women in Tech as well. And obviously hoping to grow that over the next couple of months and years. But there's always great content in there in terms of opportunities that are coming up. So it's good that it's paid off, especially doing it via Facebook groups as well. Obviously, this podcast is about all your successes. And I know you've only been in the industry for a short amount of time. But so far, what would you say your biggest achievements have been?
So I am still at the point where I would consider breaking into the industry a pretty big achievement. It took me almost 2 years. I did it in the middle of the pandemic. I'm, entirely self-taught. It's just, there were a lot of factors going against me. And so I'm still very proud of the fact that I'm in it and I made it, and that I'm on a team that's really willing to encourage my growth and elevate me to the rest of the company as well. So right now I'm actually working my way through the W3 Schools Accessibility Certificate so that I can become more of a voice of accessibility in WP Engine and help really improve our designs and really bring accessibility to the forefront of what we offer.
Amazing. No, I 100% agree. I think, like you said, it does appear to be quite a hard industry to break into. And you managed to do it off your own back, like you said, through the pandemic, which I definitely wasn't as productive in the pandemic. So well done on that. You're based in Austin, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what is it that you like most about the Austin tech scene at the moment over the past couple of years that you've been introduced to it?
So I've actually lived in Austin my whole life. I was born here. My comparison is really more of what I see in the Austin tech scene versus what I see in other industries in the city. And what I've seen is just more of a willingness on the part of the company, WP Engine specifically, to take a stand to help others. So we always have some sort of, fundraiser going on. I remember for Hurricane Ida, any employee contributions were matched by the company. We had a pretty big fundraiser during LGBT Pride Month, and we donated to Blackpink. It was the same thing. Any employee contributions were matched by the company. So it's just kind of this idea of companies that don't just want to stay out of the broader culture that they exist in. They're really interested in how their voice can help affect change as well. And I think that's really, really cool and really important.
Absolutely, no, 100% agree. And I think organisations that do, show their support for whether it's charities that you're raising for or the DEI team are raising for, and showing support for communities that may be underrepresented within the industry is definitely more than encouraging for those who may be a bit hesitant to, think that they might not necessarily belong there, and give that awareness to them as well. Speaking of the future, what are your ambitions and plans for the future then?
So, short term, at least, I'd like to become, like I was saying earlier, more of a voice to accessibility in the company. So, I'd love to finish my certificate and then be able to advocate for accessible design, not just on the outward facing websites that I work on, but also on the products, and hopefully position WP Engine to be, an accessibility advocate in the grander tech scene. That would be, awesome. So that's really where I'm focusing my energies right now.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you'll do amazing. If you've been self-taught over the past couple of years and managed to get in there despite all the odds against you, I have no doubt that you'll manage to succeed in that as well. So one final question, and I know you touched on it a little bit in terms of the Austin tech scene, and obviously WP Engine seem to be doing a great job at being advocates for diversity and inclusion, specifically in relation to LGBT plus community as well. What do you think the tech industry, in a more general term, could do to be able to encourage more people from the LGBT plus community or even other minorities to be able to introduce them into the field and encourage them to want to be a part of it?
So I think that with any marginalized group, the people in the hiring process really have to understand how their background is going to affect the candidate that they see, whose resume they see come across their desk. So I don't know, if somebody came out when they were 16 and got kicked out of the house, that's going to affect how they've lived their entire life from then on. And they may not have as polished of a resume as somebody who has a very stable home life. And so this idea of being able to give people the benefit of the doubt and see potential, even when it seems like all the skills may not necessarily be there, I think is huge. So as far as getting into the tech scene, I think that's really important. Once people are in, it's about, creating groups to help them feel comfortable and help them feel valued, and putting emphasis on things that matter to, not just LGBT employees, but also like employees of color, making sure you're advocating for all of your employees and not just the majority. I think that's really important. And I think that taking steps to do that can really help marginalized individuals feel as though they have a place and a voice in your company.
Absolutely, 100%. I agree with everything you've just said. I think in terms of what we can do, obviously, fortunately I'm not a hiring manager in a big tech company, but I am the person who will be bridging the gap between the candidates and the customers here at Coltech. So one of my main focuses is going to be working with people, whether that's people like you, or whether that's customers themselves that are looking for specific roles, to recruit in a more inclusive way, whether that's anonymizing CVs, so there's no names on there or no genders on there, so they're going off the skill sets themselves, especially when it gets to a higher level. Obviously, I appreciate that when people are first getting into the industry, it's a bit difficult, but then there's other ways that we can approach that. For example, training programs, or getting our candidates in with companies that do run training programs for beginners. And I know a few startups look at doing that in order to train people up to become somebody that's a good, valuable member of the team as well. It sounds like you've just started your journey, but it's going to be an exciting one. I mean, at this point, I don't know if you've got anything that you want to add. I've run out of questions here, but if there's anything else that you want to add, I'd be happy to hear it as well.
No, I think we kind of covered everything, but I know I'm new, but touch base with me in a couple years and who knows where I'll be. So
Absolutely, we might need to cut that bit out for WP Engine. Katie, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Like I said, I really wanted to shine light on the LGBT plus community, celebrate their successes, and it should be an exciting series. We've got a few more. I've got another one today. But no, thank you very much again for agreeing to do this. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, we'll be speaking very soon, I'm sure of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Have a good one.
You too.